Today's Mother's Day. And for a lot of us, that brings gratitude to the surface immediately. Mothers carry a kind of weight that most people never fully see. They also provide a kind of presence and protection and comfort that it's so valuable that Scripture actually uses motherhood to compare to the love God has for people. So Isaiah 66 says this: "As a mother comforts her child, so will I comfort you." So when God wanted to describe his loving connection, he pointed to the love of a mom. And that means that the way a mother loves, the way she listens and kind of steadies the family and sacrifices, the way she keeps going even when she's exhausted, and I know that's the case from my own life through the years and our boys, that reflects something true about God. So on behalf of the dads, kids, and even the teenagers, we see you, moms, and all of this. What you do matters more than you probably think it does. To the moms in the room, thank you. Thank you for showing up and for staying steady, for loving when it costs you something. You're doing kingdom work, even if people don't always notice. God does. Isaiah 66 says that God notices the sacrifice that you make. So to my wife, Kelly, I couldn't ask for a better mom. For my boys, a better first lady at Polaris. And to my mom, if you're listening online, love you too, Mom. And to all of the moms in the room, we're grateful for you. Now, we're going to take the rest of our time this morning to talk about the importance of caring for children and one option for doing something about children who live in places that need it most. This is a message, caring for children, that is, that I return to again and again because of the way God crushed me with this message in 2010. I had my original conversion to Jesus, but I very much had another conversion in 2010, even after I'd been in ministry for 10 years or so, when I realized just how important caring for children in tangible ways really is. And it all started with a book called Too Small to Ignore, with an author, Wes Stafford, who was the president of Compassion International. Now, in this book, he talks about Matthew 18 from the Gospel of Matthew, one of Jesus' teachings, and he framed this up in a way that changed me forever. So here's the quote from Matthew 18. This is Jesus talking. Whoever welcomes one, well, first, Jesus, before he says this, he calls a child up and has him stand in front of a group of people. So picture Jesus, maybe the kid looking out, Jesus' hand on the kid's shoulders and looking out over the crowd. He says, whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. If anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea. Jesus said, when it comes to kids, you welcome them, you care for them, you care for me. You mess with them, you mess with me. In other words, and here's the mantra that changed my life, how we treat children is how we treat Jesus. How we treat children is how we treat Jesus. Now, many people at Polaris can now, 15 years later, repeat that mantra regularly, and that makes me happy to know that that's the case. I want everyone at Polaris to know that and to live by that, because it's true, whether you know it or not, whether you live it or not. How we treat children is how we treat Jesus. So if we want to get our life right, like as a human, if I want to get my life right, and I do, and I hope you do, start with children, because how we treat children is how we treat Jesus. And if we want to get a church, like the DNA of a church, right, better care about kids, because how we treat children is how we treat Jesus. That's why at Polaris I would say that our number one value is children. And that can sound a little blasphemous, right? Like, shouldn't it be God? Shouldn't God be our church's number one value? Well, yes. And if we want to value God first, we better value kids first, because how we treat children is how we treat Jesus. Very important. So, before I get into the specifics of why I found Compassion International so powerful, I want to introduce you to some people who not only sponsored children through Compassion International, but they also got to meet their children. So they're going to come up, introduce themselves, and talk about what it was like to meet their children that they sponsored at Compassion International.
I'm Pastor Alex's wife, Kelly Poindexter. Last Sunday, Alex showed you a picture of when he went to Ecuador. There we go. With a group of pastors, and he decided to sponsor a compassion child while he was there. He saw firsthand how the program impacted families and that it was a reputable company. Our first sponsored child, Daniela, was 9 years old in this picture with Alex. Through our sponsorship and her local church, she received programs, food, school help, and the gospel message. The years after this, our family, including our young boys at the time, Spencer and Elijah, would send letters or emails to her, and she would write back. It is rare to actually meet your sponsored child, but 7 years after Alex went, another church in Ohio in the Canton area that we know well, they were taking a mission trip to Ecuador, so a few of us joined them, and I was able to go and meet our compassion kids. So I met Daniela and her mom when she was 16, and we had a Spanish interpreter to help us. 4 things that I remember from that trip. First, she brought a stack of letters we had written with her to the visit. She had actually saved them. Second, the family asked how they could pray for me and my family. And third, we brought gifts for them, but it really surprised me they had small gifts to give to us. And fourth, we, on that day that I got to meet her and her mom, we had a meal together, and at the end, they boxed up my leftovers that I was eating from to take with them for their family. That never, ever crossed my mind. I definitely would have cut my food differently. Alex and I first give to Polaris and support Love Pure, but felt this $43 a month helps Compassion change a child and a family's life. And we got to see that firsthand as we watched Daniela grow up.
Hello, my name is Stacy Violi. This is my daughter, Isabella. So this is Alan, our sponsored child, and we sponsored Alan since he was super little, so over 12 years we sponsored him. He was just 5 months younger than Isabella. And so, like Kelly said, in 2017, we went on a mission trip to Ecuador and had the ability to meet Alan and his mom. And I thought it was really important when I went on the mission trip to take Isabella with me, just so she could have that experience of seeing what other cultures live like and how people are living differently than how we live our lives. I was very concerned about safety, but it was completely unfounded because we were safe at all times. And it was really cool because the other church that went with us, there was another mom that had a daughter who was 1 year younger than Isabella, and we shared a room while we were there. So that was really fun that she got to bond with Kylan when we were there. So Compassion brings kids from all over the country to where we were. So Alan is from the coast, so he had spent a day traveling, and he had brought his mom. And we went to like a resort type place where there were water slides and there were animals there and soccer fields and just an area where we could play. And like Kelly said, we do get interpreters. So we have our own interpreter when we were with him. So we didn't have to share him with other groups. So it was really easy to be able to communicate with him and his mom. So it was really neat, I thought, being able to meet his mom and to hear her prayer requests and the things that were going on in her village and the aspects of her family dynamics. So that was something I didn't expect to get out of it, but I really loved. So we did bring gifts for Alan, and we just wanted to bless him while we were there. And he was so overwhelmed with just gratitude for the things that we brought him. And he talked later in letters about how he was just so overwhelmed with how much we bought him, because he had never received gifts like this before all at one time. And he was just super grateful all the time that he got to meet us. He always wanted us to come back, which unfortunately we were never able to do, but it was a really, really good experience. And like Kelly said, they brought, his mom carried this across country, and it's a Bible box. And she brought this for me. So she carried it all the way across the country. So it was totally unexpected, something that I never even dreamed that they would do for me. And I love it. It's at my house, in my bedroom. Alan has aged out of the program, and I'm very proud to say he did graduate from high school, and he's actually at university now in Quito, in the capital city.
Yeah, it was just such a great experience. I was only 11 at the time, so I don't remember everything, but it was just so important for me to be able to see how Compassion is helping these kids firsthand. We had been mailing letters back and forth with Alan since before I could even remember, so it was such a surreal experience to actually be able to meet him in person. We spent the whole day with him, and we had the translator, but the thing that I remember the most was that we gave him a soccer ball, and he asked me to play soccer with him, and as you can see in the pictures, he was like way taller than me, so he totally beat me. But I still had a lot of fun, and it was so special to be able to connect with someone despite the language barrier. And it's so important that programs like Compassion exist to be able to give these kids opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have.
Hi, I am Shannon Gerbershagen, and I'm going to talk about my two Compassion children that we sponsored. The first one is Jalexi, she just turned 20 this week, so we've had her for a really long time. And then we have a little boy who will be 14 this July, Stalin. This is Stalin when I got to see him. He was the cutest little mischievous 6-year-old. You can tell by his smile how cute and charming he was. And we consider both of them part of our family. I was lucky enough that they were both from Ecuador. So Kelly said it's rare to meet your Compassion child. It was really rare that I had two, and I got to meet both of them, and they were in different regions. But I want to talk about the biggest thing that Compassion International has done for my family and the impact it's had. Our two sons were really young when we started sponsoring, and you get a picture, and so we framed it, and it's with all the other family pictures, and we would pray for them every day, and we would talk about them, to the point that I got an email from my older son's kindergarten teacher just asking a little bit about the family dynamics, because it wasn't matching the permanent records they had at school, all the pictures and things. But I love the fact that I got to raise my boys knowing that they had extended family all across the world, and that, just because we're not with them every day. And I think that truly helped in their upbringing with appreciation as well. But we began sponsoring Jalexi in 2014, and that day, I will never forget it. I feel like it was just yesterday, but we were driving home, and I said to my husband, I'm gonna meet this girl. And I had never felt so certain about anything. Like I knew in my heart that I was gonna meet her. And then the next year we began sponsoring Stalin, and I had the same feeling. Then 2 years later, I'm sitting in the seats where you are now, and they just start talking about if anyone's interested in going to Ecuador to meet your Compassion children. I mean, it was the biggest God wink you would ever have. I mean, I just looked at my husband and he said, I know, you're going. It was like not even talked about. It was just absolutely, you're going to do this. So meeting them was one of the greatest highlights of my life because of all the lessons that I learned from them. I know that Kelly and Stacy already talked about meeting parents, but it was really eye-opening just praying with the parents of these children, and just their appreciation of how you can help their child was really a humbling experience. My two children, since they were in different regions, I didn't get to meet them on the same day, but that was actually a huge blessing because I got a day with each of them. But when I met Jalexi, the translator was not there yet. So I walked in, and it was kind of a story just even getting there, because at first we thought she wasn't going to be able to make it, and I had to go by myself, so I wasn't with a group, just safety, things like that. But I just felt like everything was going to be fine. I walk into this office, I had no idea what was going on, and the picture right here, like literally this was within 30 seconds. There was no translator yet. So it was just her and I didn't even know how to communicate. And she just immediately ran to me and gave me the tightest hug I've ever had. And she was crying. And like Kelly mentioned, the first thing she did was show me all the letters, but they didn't look like, they looked like they were 100 years old. I mean, they were so worn and torn. And she told me later, when we did have the translator, that she sleeps with them under her pillow, and that's her favorite thing that she has. She also, if you do end up sponsoring, they love pictures. Her whole room, she said, was the pictures. But Jalexi came and traveled. It was a hard travel for them. It was with her mother and her baby sister. And you'll see a little video with the sister, but the sister had on a sweatshirt and a diaper, and that was the last diaper. There was no diaper bag. They came across, and that was what they had. Jalexi, her toes were sticking out of her shoes. You just immediately I felt their need, but they didn't express that need. It was pretty special that we got to spend this day together. But all day long, Jalexi would refer to me as her godmother. Not godmother like we think, but more, she kept saying, "You're my special bonus mom sent from God." And she refers to me like that in her letters as well. So I could go on and on about this day, but I have a video that I think will capture it better than any words I could say. But I would just want you to remember that it's not just a monthly payment. It's not just you writing a letter. You truly are making a difference in a child in poverty's life. That is what I learned, is the relationship and the importance that you can make in their life. So I'm going to go ahead and play the video.
Y ahí puedes ir poniendo todas las fotos que te traigo, que te mando. Un álbum para pintar.
It's all like coloring. She has another bag.
Chico.
There's more in the front pocket.
Hay más en el bolsillo de adelante, dice.
It's a Spanish Bible.
Es una Biblia en español para ti. No.
Seen that video like 50 times and it never loses its power. I told Shannon in the first service I didn't realize she was going to play it, like walk off stage, so that I had to come up right after it. I thought I'd have a little bit of time, recovery time. Before I talk about what's next with this, because there's a second part to my, what I would call my second conversion, I want to say, set Compassion International aside. We talk about it, Polaris, we talk about a growing friendship with Jesus. We want everybody to have a growing friendship with Jesus and take steps in that friendship with Jesus. And there's really three expressions in a growing friendship with Jesus. You can say it all different ways, but we just go with treasure, table, time. That's treasure being your actual prayer, worship, your personal friendship with Jesus, kind of down thing. And then table, others, including other people in your journey. And tal is servanthood, generosity, sacrificial generosity. And really, when it comes to the tal or generosity or servanthood, there's a few steps in that. First is to just do something once, like a one-time thing. And then there's really owning a cause. And then there's this just life. The third is a continual life of open-handed generosity, to live open-handedly. And that's an ongoing thing, but that's ultimately the goal. Everything I have is God's, and I do something about something with my life whenever I possibly can. And here's what I want you to know. As we look at needs like this and opportunities like this, there are seasons of your life where you can and causes where you can and some you can't. I say that because this is gripping stuff. But some of you aren't in a place where you can right now. Some of you are maybe getting help yourself to make ends meet. And so I don't want you, the last thing we would ever want is for you to feel bad if this, or to run into something that you're not equipped to handle and sign up for something that it's not the season for you to do that. So I want to say that God will, as you're faithful, God will get you to the place where you can live generously, financially, and otherwise. And so you might not be here right now. So don't look down on yourself. Just offer yourself up to God to live open-handedly wherever you can. So I just want to say that, because I'm going to hit with the second part of this conversion. First was Matthew 18, how we treat children is how we treat Jesus. The second is this stat. But I wanted to say that before I got to this stat, because I just want to acknowledge that not everybody is at a place to do something about this. And it's not your cause right now, but it's still true. So here's the thing. UNICEF. That's the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. UNICEF, very respected organization, and their stats are considered respectable. Here's the stat. And it's gotten a little better, but it goes something like this. This is now. It was a little worse 15 years ago when I first heard it. 13,000 children die under the age of 5. 13,000 children under the age of 5 die every single day of completely preventable poverty-related causes. 18 to 20,000 children that are under the age of 18, if you fit the child category. So 13 to 20,000 children die every single day of completely preventable poverty-related causes. That's on our watch. Fill the Rocket Field House with kids every single day of completely preventable poverty-related causes. And so for me, I didn't know that. I would have never, ever guessed that. And you start to think about how we treat children is how we treat Jesus. And 13 to 20,000 every single day. And that was pretty gripping for me. So, I think there's a few ways that we can respond. Assuming that, I shouldn't even say assuming, but if you have resources, there's a few things you can do. First, you can bury your head in the ground. Just bury your head in the sand, look the other way. That's over there. That's over there. My kid needs a $300 bat for 10U so he can continue to improve and impress his coaches. And then we got to get that 9th tournament in August because there's going to be scouts there for 10U. Maybe that's not fair, but that's a little bit of how it works. And I'm just as guilty of that over the years as anyone. So the first response is we just ignore it. It's over there, we're here, not our problem. Second is to minimize it by saying things like, well, we have plenty of people in our own country. There's people in southern Ohio that aren't food insecure. Okay, you gonna do something about that then? Because sometimes we use that as a way, like there's too negative, so we don't have to do anything. Like, yeah, that's really bad, but we got really bad stuff here. Now I'm going to go do my own thing. You know what I mean? Where we use one need to cancel out another need and do nothing about either. That's a response. Or, third response is to do something about something. And figure out a way to do something about something, and that's where I was in 2010. And so I tried to learn as much as I could about Compassion International as one of many. There's many great things out there. This was the one that 15 years ago, 2010, so 16 years ago, I went to the headquarters and to Ecuador to see for myself and was blown away. As my wife said, local churches, so Compassion International works through local churches exclusively. And they'll go to a local church in a region with poverty, and through that local church, the kids that are in the program get food, nutrition, some medical stuff, education, and they're taught about Jesus, spiritual development. Most of the families with kids in the program don't even know what Compassion International is. They think it's the local church that's doing it. They think that Jesus people are helping them, because really they are. But what a great heart for an organization to be willing to step out in the light and simply give the resources through local churches so that Jesus and the local church get the credit. That's what they do for the $43. But you also, $43 a month, but there's also the letters. And for me, that was the impact. It was the letters, because Compassion International was going to do away with letter writing because of the expense. They wanted to be able to serve more kids by reducing the expense of the paper and the translators and the mail, the cost of mail. But they started to interview kids who got letters compared to kids who didn't get letters because their sponsors didn't write them. And they found exponentially more hope in the lives of children who had active letter writing with their sponsor. Take a look.
Tell me about her letters and what they meant to you when you received the letter.
The letters are like the fun part when you're in the child center, because when you have letters, they actually announce it on the microphone.
Whenever we are at the center, they're reading letters for children. I'll be anxiously waiting.
I was very, very blessed, because every month, every now that you have letters, I get one. No matter how short it is, she will make sure that I get a letter.
They called me the first time and told me, Eric, you have a letter, Mike? No, you read it wrong. That's not my letter. The first letter she wrote, letting me know what she was been writing. Couldn't believe that I got a letter.
You asked, I didn't know how to read English. I will be running from Central Days without a break, taking it to my uncle that I need to read to read it for me.
I started realizing, you know, this is real. Like, it's so real. She's there. Look, she wrote me a letter.
That was a great moment of my life.
How come a stranger tells me that I love you, I care for you, I pray for you?
The letters I received from my sponsor kept me home, kept me going.
Just recently, it's amazing how she says how God has connected us.
They give you words of encouragement.
Ella me ha enseñado el valor de amar sin tener que verla.
She says, narrators, whatever you're studying, don't give. That communication has really blessed me. That's why I'm super these things.
She really made me the kind of person I am today.
Knowing that someone cares for you, it changes you.
No, it's hard for me to imagine letters having that kind of an impact. But I've seen it. I mean, it really is. Like my kids growing up, wrote them the letters. They're like, oh, that's cool. But I've seen it. There's real hope that you can give. And so, one last thing, and that's when our boys, and I mean, when Elijah's 18, last day is tomorrow, unbelievable. Spencer's 21, but when they were 5, 6, 7 years old, to see them learn about Danielle or Brian, we've had a few sponsor kids over the years, so to see them learn about Danielle or Brian, and learn about their life in poverty, but learn about their faith through poverty. To see them bring their quarters and dimes and sometimes even dollars to put in our little jar we kept for paying the monthly fee. Things like that, the fact that they were exposed early on to what generosity and doing something about something looks like, and in poverty and gratefulness for their own situation, and to see the faith of people living with very little. It was invaluable. And so if you have young kids and you're at a place, I would highly recommend you consider something like this. So if this is a cause that you want to be a part of, you can use the QR code. You can go to Compassion International or in the lobby. There's packets of Real Kids and Kathy Beebe out there by the table, and you can take a packet and get going with that. There are a lot of great things out there. This is one possibility that I want you to be aware of as we pursue a life of open-handed generosity. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you for every child, every mother, every person that you've placed in our care and in our lives. And help us never forget how we treat children is how we treat Jesus. Give us hearts that refuse to look away from need. Give us courage to do something about something, and compassion that moves us from words to action. And as we leave here today, make us people who reflect your hearts in our family and friends in this city.